When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, their profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
Hi everyone, this is Kim Myers and you are listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest, she has done theater, television, and film. So she has hit the big three mediums. However, our fan base might know her from Hellraiser Bloodlines, which I just saw streaming the other day. But then there was this other little thing over here I'm going to steal from the cabinet in Nightmare on Elm Street 2, the original VHS I have in my hand. But let's go ahead and say hello to Miss Kim Myers. Kim, how are you?
Hello. Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hello, I'm well, and I love that. Thank you for that introduction. That was really sweet. And yeah, the Elm Street. I was talking to one of my sons today, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I mentioned that I was going to be doing this podcast. It's a podcast?
Yeah, yes.
Podcast interview. Of course I knew that. And And I said, yeah, it's primarily, I think, because of Elm Street. And he said, wow, Mom, that's just incredible. I mean, it's still so viable, and it is, it's incredible to me. So anyway, thank you for having me.
Well, before there's something else I want to bring up with the VHS, but I'll do so in a second. Correct me if I'm wrong, you have three kids, right? Two sons
I
and
do.
a daughter?
Yeah, I do. Uh-huh.
Okay. So with that being said, and obviously this conversation you just mentioned with your one son, did were they ever impressed at what you have done for your career, or is it like, she's just mom?
Me, I am really
Yeah.
just mom. Yeah, I mean, they think it's wonderful, I think, because two of them, well, one has sort of transitioned into a different field from the entertainment industry. He was in the film photography, deep director of photography world specifically. And then my other son he's a musician and into music editing. But I think they have a taste of the oftentimes complexity of this industry, the
Hmm.
film, television, entertainment industry. So I know that even though they were very little and actually weren't even born for a good chunk of my career, um, learning about it, I know that they have respect. They have respect for me for having started so young and worked as much as I did. But yeah, I mean, to them, I'm just mom, and mom, will you please just go back out and work more? That's what I get now,
Yeah.
especially
Oh,
from my
trust me, I know. I have musician friends, and yeah, like you said about how complex and everything that the business is, and I know my lane. Trust me, but it's amazing that in 14 years, going to be in about 6 weeks of doing this. It's entertaining. But the reason I wanted to have and we're going to be covering a lot of what we're talking about there as we go along here. But the reason I had the VHS tape sitting handy for me is you probably wouldn't remember because you come across so many people in different lanes and whatnot. But we were both at Scarefest last October in Kentucky.
Oh, yes.
And and Heather was there. There was a bunch of Nightmare people there. And Heather is also one of the few I don't have any kind of connection to. And I just recently got connected with you thanks to Ira Hayden. I owe you a drink, buddy, when we see each other. I saw him last weekend briefly in Pittsburgh, but
Hmm.
that's a whole nother thing. Well, anyway, I had asked you if you knew if this might have been an original VHS or not. Yeah, just from little signs, but you weren't too sure of. I did find out it's an OG tape, which is awesome
That's
because
amazing.
it's the same. Yeah, it had some of the same little things and quirks that the tape I had Heather sign and then Robert.
Hmm.
It had the same quirks because
Yeah.
Heather's very articulate with that stuff. And she goes, "Here, let me show you why." And she goes, "Here, here," and just pointing out all these little things that I'm not going to bore the audience with. So she
Yeah,
goes,
that's great. People might actually appreciate, I mean, just a side note, they might appreciate that if they want to verify for themselves that
"Okay,
something.
well, maybe I'll do a separate video on that because I'll use the first Elm Street as an example as well, and this one. But that I had sent off to what they call encapsulating. And I don't know if any of your kids were into comics or anything like that, but they do these things where they seal
My husband.
videotape. They seal
Oh,
videotapes and all too. Like the high-end collectible ones.
yes.
Since I had both Robert and Heather sign that tape or the cover,
Hmm.
yeah, I had it and kept grade it and all that fun stuff like you would do
Wonderful.
comics.
Wonderful. That's great.
So
That's so
it was
smart.
worth it. It was worth it, the
Yeah,
$50.
absolutely, for sure.
So I'm just waiting for it to come back in the mail. All right. Anyway, now that I'll get off my nerd soapbox. So back to, like I always joke, there's everything online happens to be true. And I heard you as a youngster, which I guess makes sense, that well, you come from kind of an entertainment family already because dad was a musician from what I heard, and
Hmm.
mom was a dancer, moved
Hmm.
here. Dad still worked as a composer
Correct.
out in the LA area, but you were kind of shy and different things. So
Hmm.
was it Oliver Twist that led you to, let me give this entertainment thing a shot?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I didn't even, I mean, I was too young. I was 11. I think I had just turned 12 when I was cast in the school musical. I didn't want to audition. I wasn't really shy, I don't think, my friend groups, socially. But speaking in front of people, being the center of attention, didn't want that. But our teacher, who was a phenomenal teacher for so many other reasons, including the fact that she made everybody audition, so I had to audition as well. And I ended up getting cast as Nancy, the lead, and shocked my family, shocked myself. Um, and it was so joyous. Yeah, it was a discovery. It was a discovery of something where I just felt so, I'm sure you'll hear many actors say this, or anybody in any profession where they discover that thing, they step into this circumstance and it just feels like home. It feels like, oh yeah, you were there all along. I just hadn't met you yet. And that's what it felt like to me. And so I just from that point on, yes, as much as my young little brain at that time, pre-middle school could imagine, oh, this is what I want to do. And it just kind of naturally evolved from there, doing more plays and musicals in middle school, and then all the musicals in high school. So yeah, yeah, that was the launching pad, Oliver Twist.
And and obviously then you go on to UCLA theater school, and then
No, no,
that
no.
wasn't true. That wasn't true.
I didn't go to UCLA. Mm-mm.
Because
Uh,
that's right, because you went to Syracuse,
I went to
like,
Syracuse. Yeah.
which was a broadcasting school. But yeah, I
Mhm.
remember reading somewhere there was a connection to theater school, but uh like I said, the internet. But you know, it's funny, you got Nightmare during, I guess, the first summer home from college at 19.
Yeah.
And you don't do many of these, so I was really doing some deep dives. And one of the conversations I did listen to, you were talking about being a 19-year-old young adult, but you meant you were discussing actually being a young 19-year-old. So
Yes.
what did you actually mean that you were, was it you
Um,
felt younger than your years, or
Somewhat. Yeah. I mean, when I think about, certainly when I encounter and observe, um, and this is a generalization, obviously, it's not person to person, clearly. Um, I had a very strict dad. Um, I, yeah, I'm so articulate. Um, I had a very, yeah, I just think I was naive in regards to certain things, and really just mainly from a logistical standpoint. I had not been a part of the industry. I was just stepping into it. Um, I think I was a little younger than even though 19 is really, really young. I think I felt younger than that at times. And so where some 19-year-olds, I think, may have, certainly nowadays, again, generalization, but I think perhaps nowadays a bit more, and maybe it's a result of social media and internet and all that, and I think that's probably very true. There's a certain perception of wiser beyond their years. The reality is probably very different. They're not, but the perception might be, and I didn't feel that about myself at that age. So I think that's kind of really what I mean by that.
Yeah, and it's funny, but I think it leads to a pertinent question as well. Well, first off, I want to say during your time on Nightmare, and there'll be more questions about it, obviously, but you said you credit Mark for trying, who's a couple years older than you. And last I heard, there was some health stuff. Mark, I hope you're doing well if you hear this. Always been a nice guy when we communicated. I hope things are on the uptick for you, sir. But you credited Mark for teaching you some things along the way, saying to be able to speak up for yourself. And hey, make sure you're comfortable with whatever we're going to do. If you're not comfortable, speak up. He was trying to show you those ropes.
Yes. Yes, he did. And sometimes it wasn't literally expressed. He didn't just sometimes outright say it, and sometimes he did. And I didn't know at that time what the boundaries were, like exactly what the boundaries were and exactly what my rights were as an actor. I knew how I felt about things, and having the confidence, feeling the safety in that really early time, brand new time as a working actress, to be able to ask for what I needed or question something I wasn't comfortable with. And I think he's probably sensed that. And he had a lot more experience than I had at that time. And I just felt very safe with him. I knew I could trust him. I knew that he had my back, and I knew that we were a team, not just as the characters, but as artists, carrying this story, this film. I felt very supported and very, just very supported by Mark.
Well, and I always think when you were having this conversation with, I believe it was a friend of yours, Elizabeth, that I was listening to this conversation to.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And, on that same train per se, made me think about it. Obviously at 19, I wasn't, I was going into college and all that stuff, and of course I wasn't the same person at 25, 30, or now going to be 42 in a couple months. You know what I mean? You're not the trajectory that we have as people. We're not, or hopefully we're not the same people that we were as our younger selves. So with that being said, feeling your oats and stuff, both professionally and maybe even as a 19-year-old female at the time. And same thing would go for you from 19 to 25 to 30, 40, as things move along. When did you feel like you had your voice not only professionally, but as a person, to what you're comfortable with in both sides?
Thank you. That's a great question. That's a meaningful question. I feel like, I mean, just to be perfectly honest, I'm still working. I'm a work in progress. So that is something I still sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I still have to remind myself, tap myself on the back of the head, or just say, trust your feet, I have great intuition. I think we all do inherently. We just forget sometimes to tap into it. So I have good intuition, and enough times I have not honored my intuition in circumstances. So at the time, I would say there was a shift after I had my first child. That was something I didn't think about it at the time, but looking back, um, going through the experience of becoming a mother for the first time, um, there was definitely a shift where I became more in tune with the power. And power, I don't mean power, in an ego at all, in an ego sense. I mean the real natural, innate strength and centeredness that is, again, everyone's birthright. We just sometimes we forget, we're not taught, etc. But that, I think that's when there was a shift. But again, it's still something I have to work on. It's
Yeah,
better,
but
no question, but it's
like you said, that when you had your first child, your whole, I don't have kids, but there's that shift. And I noticed it even as an uncle to two, a 9 and a 7-year-old, that there's that shift when kids are in your life. In your case, when you became a mom or whatever, and you got to be the example, one of the examples for these children.
Mhm.
There's a certain switch that flips off, I think, naturally in our head that, hey, if that makes sense without
It
getting
makes
too,
total sense. Yes,
that
absolutely. It does.
that you and your husband had to be a good example for this young person, and then three young people you had to be.
Yes. And then even more so, we had our daughter 10 years after we had our first child, our first son, and being a mother to a female, a girl, was a whole other shift for me too. So to your point, being that example, of course, mothers want to be ideally the best example possible in terms of being a healthy, um, centered, empowered person. And for a daughter, it's next level because of a lot of cultural influences.
Yeah, good and bad, with that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that you wanted to be, I would think you want to be that beam of, you know, straight, straight and narrow, positive, not to say there things don't happen in life, but you wanted to be able
Yeah.
to guide her as best as possible.
As much,
And
right, as much as possible.
well, since we're there, and thank you for addressing it, what's the biggest difference between raising your boys and your daughter?
Um, well, just in my experience, and I had read this, I had heard this from other parent friends. Um, they're boys and girls, again, generally, this is not everybody, but in my experience, they're just wired differently. There are things in common for sure. Emotions, my sons can and have been at times as emotional as my daughter, and I love that. And my husband and I have always encouraged that because it's healthy. It's a um, natural part of any human being, no matter what gender you are. And at the same time, there are some real differences. Um, sorry, so your question was, what was the difference in
What
raising them?
and what did you find different in how you dealt with the boys versus your daughter?
Hmm. Well, honestly, nothing that clear is coming to mind. because there's so many parallels, there's so many similarities. I honestly think parenting is parenting. What I can tell you is that I did learn that one cannot parent each child the same way,
Different personalities,
whether they're
just all
male
that
or
stuff.
female. Different personalities, they come in with a different coding, a different soul, a different just their essence.
Yeah.
They're born with their essence. And and parenting one in a particular way, I have learned through experience, usually did not work with another one.
Yeah.
So it requires a good deal of awareness, and as much as possible, we're human and I've made a ton of mistakes, but being able to be as present as possible uh, is essential in life, but 100% with parenting.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get off the family a little bit. So obviously, like we mentioned, went to Syracuse, came back and actually filmed Nightmare 2. But you got an agent before you went off to school, correct?
Yes, I did.
So are you still with the same agent or did things change?
No, I was with her for about 8 years, and it's interesting. I signed with her, I think just after I turned 18, and she wasn't thrilled for a good reason when I left her. I was with another agency, and but she and I, my original agent, are still really close. I love her dearly. She's retired from the industry, and she's still a part of my life. So no, I am not still currently repped by the same agent. No.
Okay. So were you one, especially at that younger stage, heavily reliant on the agents and managers and all that stuff? Or did you try to incorporate your thoughts and feeling everything out with, say, your folks because they had some entertainment experience as well?
No, I really relied on my representation.
Okay.
Yeah. hmm And
Was
yeah,
there, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry.
And I was going to say my mother, she was a professional dancer. She was born in Ireland, raised in Ireland, and then moved to London when she was a teenager to join a ballet company, ballet school. And and then my parents, not to give you my whole bio, but they ended up moving to Los Angeles when my older sister was 2, and then I was born a couple of years later, and then my mom stopped her life as a dancer. So
Yeah,
I
just
wasn't really connected as much to that at all, actually, at that time. So back to your point, your question, yes, I really relied mostly on my representation. Mhm.
right on. So obviously the story's been told on panels and things like that that you didn't see the original Nightmare and you didn't want to be influenced once you took the job. So how long after, I guess, wrapping the film did you decide, let me go see what the first one was about and see what the differences were?
Gosh, this is a long time ago, you're asking. I I am not sure this is 100% accurate, but I feel like within a year
Yeah.
of our film coming out, I think, yeah, within a year or so, I saw it.
Yeah, which is funny that, Mark had auditioned for part one and that story's been told and I'm not going to grab it. It's in the cabinet, the 4 hour plus documentary that Heather and others had put together probably like 10, 12 years ago at this point, which is
Yeah.
amazing and so glad as a fan, a movie fan in general, that they were able to get that together when they did. Because obviously, since we lost some folks like Wes Craven, and
Yeah.
there was, just different people along the way of franchise history and key people are sadly no longer with us. So, it's if somebody's been living under a rock, please watch the documentary if you find yourself so inclined. Now, that was actually the first time you saw Mark in what, 20 years or so?
25 years.
Wow.
We haven't seen each other in 25 years.
Did you guys lose touch, just life in general, or
We did. Yeah, we did. Because, we finished the film. We socialized, we hung out. Um, for a little while after we wrapped, a little while, meaning, I don't know, like a few months, maybe a year, but I went back to school that fall and had my life there. And I very much wanted to get back to school and my friends and my then boyfriend. Um, and we just had, we just had different lives, and he has his um, story and his life and some choices that he made that moved him back to New York, and then we really lost touch. And I just, so it was very, very sweet when we got to see each other for the first time.
Because there was an extra on the disc that you could see it was an emotional connection catching up the first time. I don't know if you saw that extra bit or whatever. Obviously you were there, but they were just what they caught it seemed like very sweet.
I remember. It was genuine. I mean, he's so dear to me. He as a human is so dear to me.
Yeah.
His impact on my life is so special. And we share this experience. We share that movie and that movie experience. So seeing him again was just, juxtaposed to my life at, where I was. And at that time with this as a mom with 3 kids. And was my daughter born? Yeah, my daughter was born. And so it was a lot. It was wonderful to see him again.
And I know this might be or sound like nonsense with this question, but obviously Lisa Weber was a young 19-year-old at the time. I'm guessing similar age on screen, not besides the Kim Myers off camera. But have you ever thought about the evolution of what Lisa would have been as she, grew up and went through school, and like how your life is projected? I went to school, I continued to work, I had kids, just the different beats in life.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about what her evolution would have been?
I haven't. I haven't. But as you were asking that question, what just came to me was Lisa. I mean, Lisa and Jesse went through some pretty high trauma with the story, fiction as it is, obviously, thank goodness. My hunch is she would have gone up, because she was in high school. They were both in high school at the time. So she probably was about 17, Lisa, 17, 18. I think Lisa went off to college. She was very bright. She was a good student. I think Lisa went to a great college and ended up becoming a therapist. So I think she really had a knack for, she was inherently compassionate and had a lot to give from some of her experiences.
Well, with that being said, and obviously based on my last question, would you say, or at least at that time frame, how much of Kim was Lisa and how much would you say Lisa was Kim? As far as when you developed the character, yes, you were still younger on film acting and stuff, but have you tried to think how much each side was of each other, if that makes sense?
It does make sense. That's a great question. I think almost always, if not always, there's an element, whatever that might be, and it'll always be specific to the nature of the person, the woman that I'm playing. So yes, there was some Kim some of myself for sure. In Lisa, I had just graduated high school. I knew that experience. I knew about falling in love for the first time. That had happened. I knew that I'm a very caring person. Like those elements are true. I think Lisa uh, is maybe a little more heroic than Kim might have been able to be at that time. I'm pretty heroic now, I think.
Oh God, he's coming back. Get out of here, Lisa.
Jesse, fight him.
I can't.
Fight it, Jesse. You created him. You can destroy him.
But at that time, Lisa was incredibly brave and incredibly strong. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Rock on. So, why do you think part two has become such a cult classic? And I would say, and I know Jack Shoulder, okay, he's a Philly guy as well, and we've gotten to know each other over the years. Great dude. He's always been good to me. And he said it best, and there wasn't a blueprint for the series because one was its own entity, two was its own film, and then you notice three, four, everything else went a different direction. So why do you think two, as a standalone film, has become such a cult classic and something that fans always talk about?
I think that's based on a few things. I think the primary reason could be the role reversal of the main characters of Lisa and Jesse. That Jesse is the scream quote unquote queen. The conversations around the film having a quote gay context. But I think it's all of those things, honestly, but it would be interesting to hear what the fans think as to why they think it's a cult classic. That's my take from the bits of conversation and comments that I've heard.
Well, I'm not going to talk about it here, but me and Kim have talked about a few other things, and I'll fill her in more in depth when we turn off the little red button, because certain things don't need to be out there. That's people's business. But yeah, I'll just leave that as it is. So, obviously, you went on to do other things. You were, like I mentioned, Hellraiser, for example, in the 95, 96's Bloodline, which I watched the other day. Seinfeld, which I have on a TV now. There's just, you did theater. Yeah, you've done all these different things. So is there a certain medium that you enjoy doing?
Yeah. I love a good story, whatever that genre happens to be. I love a good story is everything. I haven't done a lot of comedy, but the little that I've done, I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. It's just so freeing and fun. It's so I could see myself leaning into that a little bit more. But honestly, a good story. That's essential.
I'd agree with you. And most of the people I know in the acting world and different things, or even the songwriting world, that they say that story it grabs you.
Yes.
And unfortunately, he's sadly another one who's no longer with us. But you got a chance to work with him, and a couple of my friends got to work with him too on a different project. In Patrick Swayze, you did a crime thriller, Letters from a Killer. You were Gloria Stevens. He was Ray Starnell. Wrongfully convicted of a murder, all that stuff. Did you enjoy doing such a serious tone project that something like that can be?
Oh yeah. It was really gratifying. I mean, a little scary at first, but it's those, I think those characters, those people, as written, that scare you a little bit as an actor. That is something that can be real gold at just as an artist, as an actor. So yeah, it was funny thing is I wasn't originally brought in for the role that I was cast in. I was brought in for a different role. And I can understand the other role was probably more obvious for what they thought of me, of Kim, of me. And then I don't know what the casting director saw that they decided, let's bring Kim in for Gloria. But I was thrilled. First, I was a little taken aback, and then I thought, oh yeah, let's grab this and see what kind of what we can mine out of this. So it was gratifying. Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to ask, what was Patrick like around you? Because, like I said, I have people I've had on early in show history and stuff, and who've become friends and stuff, like friends, not just like, oh, hey, how you doing? The showbiz type of, gaga.
Mm-hmm.
And they say not their stories of Patrick. He was a gentleman. He was there. Nothing but positive things to say about the man. What was your experience with him?
Exactly the same. A total pro. He was a gentleman. I mean, that's apt description. He was a gentleman. He was kind. He was very supportive. He really tuned in. I can't speak for the other actors or anybody's obviously who's worked with him, but I felt very safe in his presence, playing with him, in this setting of the filming. He was just a consummate professional. No ego, just like I said, generous, all those things. It was a joy to work with him.
He was everything that most people would say about him then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what other
Yeah,
people
well, it's
but
basically stuff you were saying. The generous, the kind. Yeah, everybody I've talked to that have dealt with Patrick, both professionally and personally, they just said, what you saw is what you got with him.
Yeah.
But you said something interesting there and that was intense as far as like the subject matter on that project. And obviously you've done stuff across the board, intense, horror, this, that, whatever, stage work. How have you been able to, at the end of the day, whether it's filming, theater, whatever, turn that switch off and be able to have a true balance that, okay, I'm going to go home and be Kim, the wife, the mom, and not stress over the nonsense of work, whether it was stressful or not, or how were you able to keep that balance?
Well, I would say there was like how to keep the balance pre-motherhood and how to keep the balance post once I became a mom, a mother. In this case, with the film with Patrick, I had my first child already, who was only about a year and a half. This film and the role did require me going to certain places that, as I've said probably in the past, were very intense is one word, but dark. And so I hoped anyway that I was cognizant for my mental health, my peace, and also my babies, my toddlers piece, I was cognizant, I think, of being able to shake it off. No, I would be returning tomorrow. It was okay, and I get to go home because the balance of coming home was what I really needed. With everything, but specifically in relation to that film and that role, it was such a contrast. And so I know there were times when I probably didn't completely let go, but I would meditate or just sit with my baby, and that was enough, honestly, I think, to ground me back.
Bring you back to Kim
Mm,
Myers, not the character
right.
you're.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you, and you don't have to answer this, obviously. Would you ever say with that and being grounded with the family and stuff, would your husband ever have to, Kim, come back? I want my wife back. You need to let that go. Whatever might have been bothering you that.
Mm,
Hey, come on, let's have dinner. Let's hang out with the kids. Let's
yeah.
come back to me, honey. As you would jokingly say, come back to me, Jesse.
Right. Thankfully, I mean, he'd probably have to answer. No, we never
You
had a
don't.
situation like that. Mm-mm.
Well, that's good that you're able to. And I'm sure having things like you know, working out or yoga or things like that, or having spiritual beliefs or whatever, you have these other aspects of your life that were able to bring you together.
Mhm.
Two more questions for you. I appreciate the time. First is conventions. And like I said, we met last October briefly, talked a couple of minutes and all. You were as gracious then as you are now with dealing with my knucklehead self. But what was your experience starting to go to conventions and things like that when people said, "Hey, Kim, why don't you come sign autographs? Mark's going to be
Mhm.
here. Robert Russell's going to be here. Yada yada." These different people that you've worked with along the way. So, what was your expectations? But what are you thinking of now that you've got some under your belt? Obviously,
Yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't have any expectations. It was the idea of a convention for Elm Street or horror movies was so foreign to me. I didn't know that they existed. And when I was first called about one, I didn't want to go. I talked to my husband about it. And I said, what is what is this? These exist. I had heard of Star Trek conventions, and if there was any assumption, I assumed that was the only kind of convention that existed. So it was very new. And then we just decided together I would just try one and just see what it was like. Fortunately, it was a really good convention, um, well run, safe, well organized, great fans, and so I had a great first experience. So that was really fortunate. Um, and then what struck me, and what still is so striking to me, obviously less so, but still, is the life of these films that continues on through generations. We'll have family members come to the table, or people come to the table, and then we learn this is their mother, and this is their grandmother, and this is their child, and this is their grandchild, and they're all huge Nightmare on Elm Street fans. It's incredible. It was a big surprise to me at first because it had been such a long time since we'd done the film, um, that I didn't think about it. I really did. I was so appreciative of having done it at the time, but I hadn't really given it much thought in many, many, many years. So being in the presence of people who think about it a lot and know these films, up and down, side, left and right, um, was very touching. Yeah, it was a wonderful surprise.
And well, on that note, strangest thing you ever signed, or the coolest thing you ever signed, people who've come to
Oh,
you.
oh boy.
I know that's up. That's
No, no, no.
far. It makes
There's
you think about
nothing.
it.
Yeah, and no, there's nothing that where I felt uncomfortable. And if I felt uncomfortable, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, the things that I love, so I wouldn't call them the strangest, but when fans will bring like the laser disc from Japan or
Mhm.
Russia or I'm trying to think with some of the France, Belgium, and some of the artwork is just beautiful. And many times the items are in such pristine condition, obviously because they're collecting them, but some stuff shows up and it's not so pristine.
Mhm.
Uh, so that, yeah, not strangest, but just I'm amazed at the broad scope of the merchandising and the figures and I mean somebody did bring, was it in Kentucky? No, it was something more recent. They brought a figure of Lisa. It was the first one that I'd seen, and it was so funny. It was so cute. And yeah, I hope that answers your question, but
Yeah. Yeah. No. And when I say, I probably should have clarified it when I said this, but when I say strangest, because typically for those who may not go to shows or haven't been to a ton, yeah, typically the guests or guest in particular will have, say, like 8x10s, mini posters, things like that. Sometimes people will come with their own photos, VHS or DVDs. I've seen the laser discs a lot more lately at
hmm
shows.
hmm
But yeah, so like it's funny that you say that, seeing the different broad, from posters from across the globe and different things. And I don't know if he still does it, but I've been fortunate enough to have a couple of drinks with Robert over the years at different events we would be at. It was just we crossed paths at the bar, and
hmm
you know how Robert is. He could tell stories and all that stuff,
Oh
and it's
no. Oh, he's the
and
best storyteller.
and and he would talk about at times going to shows anywhere around the world, and he would take an extra bag with him because he would see stuff at the vendors at the conventions and stuff or passing by. He'd end up going and buying or sending somebody with money to, hey, so and so had this kind of poster, they had this
Yeah.
figure, please go get this for me, give him the
Yeah.
money, and he'd be coming home with this extra stuff.
No,
And
I
God
believe
bless,
it, especially
God,
Robert.
God bless Nancy with. She goes, "What are you doing? Like you're going to work, like what I mean, coming home with new
I
toys and
know
stuff."
they
It's like,
must have a museum somewhere, or
oh,
they'll need one at some point.
but yeah, it's like, what are you doing coming home? No, but that's a whole nother. I'm not going to throw him under the bus. So, uh, so final question for you. Oh, you know what? Let me ask this because thank you again, Ira, for connecting us.
Yes,
How
thank you,
how do you,
Ira.
I love Ira. He's a good dude. Whenever you call a bat phone, Ira's there. So how did you guys connect? Because you guys were in two different films, obviously. Was it the
Yeah.
convention scene or what was?
No, Ira and I are in a movie together. We met, technically we met uh, December of 1986 for a film called Illegally Yours that was directed by Peter Bogdanovich for all the cinephiles out there. And if you don't know who Peter Bogdanovich is, I highly recommend you look him up because he is a formidable he sadly he passed away a few years ago. He was a formidable uh, presence in the film industry, director, and his history is really captivating. His journey to becoming a director, and it starred Rob Lowe, Colleen Camp, myself, Ira, other actors as well, of course. But so we met on that film, and we just became like brother and sister. We've just
Yeah.
been, he's family, and I adore him. and his family, and that's how we met.
Yeah, because I recently did a live, what I've been doing lately, live fireside chats, where we'll do a live episode essentially, and we'll do it over social media and such. But I have fans in the Zoom room and stuff to interact with the guests. And this is one of the things I'm going to bring up, where they can buy autographs and do different things to make it worth the guest's time.
Mm-hmm.
But we just got done one of those, and I said, man, now I don't know how it came up. I said, man, I always wanted to talk to Kim, and I tried this outlet, professional outlet, that, Reddit. Yeah, I was just griping. Just a gripe, I guess. It was one of those few times I wanted to hear myself gripe. And he goes, I said, you know how that goes. It's like, I go, man, I always wanted to talk to Kim on an episode. And so he goes, well, Kim's like my sister. And that's how that whole thing started. So, final question. What do you think your legacy is, both as a performer professionally, but also person? Like the mom, the wife, how do you think people think about what you've done, but how do you think your legacy will last?
How do I think it will last, or how do I?
Well, from both sides, the personal and the professional, when people bring up Kim Myers.
Well, I hope, because I think it's essential to being a part of any community and being a human being, is my empathy. I am a very empathetic person. I think that I appreciate truth, and more often than not, I always look for the good in someone, when possible. We'll just leave that there. And if not, at least I will wonder anyway about what happened to that person that might have created this. And there's the empathy. So yeah, I think more than anything, I hope that it's that I lead with empathy, and that can be a beautiful, wonderful way to live. And I know it can also be heavy at times. But all in all, I think it's a healthy place to live from.
Absolutely. Kim Myers, I'm going to share your Instagram and IMDb, obviously. As we wrap the interview, is there anything project-wise coming up that people should keep an eye out for?
Not at the moment, but that could change soon. And if and when it does, I'll share it.
Absolutely. Kim, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Hey folks, looking for the ultimate destination for the nerd enthusiasts and collectors? Well, we found the spot for you. Nerds Nest Collectibles is a haven for nerds, geeks, and fans alike, as they have many different products and certainly more to come. Make sure you go ahead and visit them at nerdsnestcollectibles.com. Check them out.
Freddy
Robert England, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio. Don't take a nap.